So hi guys, here with Huge Gorilla at the start of our YouTube blog to sort of help athletes and sports people and general day-to-day goers on mental problems or physical problems, all sorts of subjects that we're starting on. So take it away. Introduce yourself, Alfie.
So thanks, James. I'm Alfred Showmuni. I play American football and also athlete ambassador for Huge Gorilla as well.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome, Alfie.
Thanks, Pat.
Hi, my name's Pat Barnard. I work with Huge Gorilla too. I'm a psychologist. I love really focusing more on sports psychology. And I also played professional sport for a very long time with James. We played some professional rugby together back in the day. And yes, it's just a privilege to be here. And it's great to be here with you guys to have a bit of a chat about things.
So yeah, it's pretty open discussion, and we've got Alfie on board just to sort of talk about how people have their general issues, problems, and just talk about things that hopefully people can learn and share from what we're talking about. So Alfie, take it away. What subjects do you want to talk about with Pat? And obviously my experience isn't the same, but maybe I can chip in with a bit of life experiences, but Pat's the expert here.
I think the biggest one for me that I said to James earlier when we were talking about this sort of thing was essentially dealing with competitive loss. So dealing with loss in competition and sport. That's one thing that I very rarely am able to sort of overcome, because when it happens, it happens. You can't defeat a loss is a loss. Do you know what I mean? Especially at a final or a quarter final, the weight is that much more. I just kind of wanted to know what kind of things that have you experienced or seen or kind of learned from your time doing psychology and in sport that probably help other athletes like myself.
That's a very interesting question, Alfie. I mean, I also remember I've also lost out on a couple of semi-finals in my life. And I mean, it's a gutting experience. And you literally take weeks to get over it, even though you don't think that, but you do. It's quite interesting. We were just talking a little bit earlier about serotonin uptake, and there's actually a biological reason for it. I mean, serotonin is one of your most powerful, you could call it neurotransmitters that you have in your brain, and it's very important for happiness, and it's very important for function. But if you look at the origin of serotonin, the reason why we have it was basically to keep the tribe, if you want, the old tribe or the human tribe to go forward and to actually do things for each other. So serotonin is quite interestingly, because if you break it down to your four neurotransmitters, you're looking at dopamine, you're looking at serotonin, you're looking at endorphin, and you're looking at oxytocin. Now, they all played a very vital role in our human development. Now, if you take, for instance, dopamine is a motivator hormone. And the reason why we had that is back in the day, we would see the animal running there and we'll get lots of dopamine. So dopamine gets you going. That's the one that motivates you. And then while you're running behind this animal, you'd get stuff like endorphins. Now, the endorphins is like a painkiller. It's like a morphine. Okay, so because the hunt was very physical and very difficult, we get the endorphins. And we'll get loads of that. And as soon as we basically killed the animal or found or got to our goal by killing the animal, we'd get huge amounts of dopamine again. But then to make sure that we don't eat the animal right there and then, we take it back to our tribe. And when we get home to the tribe, we get huge amounts of serotonin. Okay, and everybody's telling you how great you are, and you get the pat on the back, and then we retell the story of how the hunt went and how you went through everything, and that would basically be our serotonin levels. So that's that appreciation that you feel, that other people feel about you and that you feel about yourself. That's where your serotonin comes in. And what's quite interesting in today's life is we don't have that much of that anymore. People don't have that experience of giving to other people. Except us in a sports environment, in a sports-rich environment like football or rugby, you get patted on the back all the time when things go well. When you've played a great match, you feel amazing, and that's basically come down to the same basic principle of just that serotonin levels that are sky high. Now, the inverse happens when you lose.
Right, okay.
When you lose and you don't have the chance to tell that story, and you don't have the chance to exploit yourself, that's actually when the serotonin uptake isn't as high as it is. And like I said to you before, professional athletes actually have between 3 and 4 times more serotonin than the average person. So we go from huge highs to very high lows in a matter of an instant. And that can definitely have an effect on your performance. That's just biologically. The fact is you must try to acknowledge it. And then obviously you must try and use certain techniques to try and get that serotonin levels right back up again so that you can, be as performant as you can be.
So is it almost like just catch yourself in the moment almost, to know that, okay, this is happening, push yourself back into that state of mind where you're not depressed or upset or angry, essentially.
It's a situation like, for instance, I called it a psychological technique. It's pattern interrupt, where you try and interrupting your thoughts that are focusing obviously on the loss, and try to focus on the rebuild and what are we going to next, and the next step, and putting in the whole thing again. If you want to simplify, thinking about the hunting technique, if you want, okay, fine, we've lost it. Now, where's my new motivation? Try and get that dopamine going again. Try and get training really hard again, because the endorphins we get from training and physical hard training, and then all of a sudden the serotonin and the oxytocin and all those things will take over. An interesting question there too is the oxytocin. The oxytocin and the serotonins are the two most powerful neurotransmitters. So if you're lacking in serotonin, and not a bad thing is just to spend time with family, because the oxytocin one is actually set together to keep the family together. Very interestingly, like women, when they breastfeed, they have huge amounts of oxytocin. Just after they've given birth, they get huge amounts of oxytocin. But we as men, for instance, very interestingly, if we hold our partners, we get huge amounts of oxytocin, and our children, huge amounts of oxytocin. Even somebody just in our close family, we get those hits of oxytocin. And that's why it's not always a bad idea that when you've experienced the loss like that, go spend some time with family, because they'll pump you back up, and you'll get some stuff to get over the loss.
I think, just speaking from my perspective as a rugby as well, I think every time after a loss, it's quite hard, because you normally have the Sunday to dwell on things. So you have a whole day of dwelling. The Saturday night, you're dwelling on the loss. Like Pat said, I think when you lose, you tend to need your wife or your partner more. As a rugby player, your wife will always say, "Oh, you only need me when you lose," and then when you win, you're out with toys and doing things like that. So I can completely see where Pat's coming from, and yeah, it's a hard thing. You dwell on it for long periods, but I think, like Pat said, you just got to refocus on the next thing, which can be hard. But like you said, that's where I guess the tribe comes in and helps you refocus. Huh?
Right.
Exactly.
That's definitely a good answer. Yeah, I would say that. I think. And my partner would be like, well, she literally just probably listen to our answer and be like, well, I told you. So I probably need to, take more account of like people around me. That's a really good thing that, that's in that kind of way, you kind of notice the pattern interrupt and it's go and spend time with your family or your partner. So that's actually really useful. That's very, very useful for me. So.
On top of that, Alfie, one of the things that I always reiterate too is that as soon as a loss happen, just get straight back on the horse. That's one of the things of professional sport, is that those things happen and you just need to go straight back on it. And it's one of those things that the sooner you get back on it, the sooner you get back in this whole process. Call it the hunting process that I call it. So you want to have your dopamine, you want to have your motivation for the week, you want to have your endorphins, the hard training that you need to go through, so that you can get your serotonin and so that you can get your oxytocin in that matter. So just try and get straight back on the car. That's the best way to get through it.
Okay. You got Alfie. We've discussed some other topics. If you want to touch on those.
Yeah. So. Growing up, like the way I was, I have a lot of family members. And I turned out to be probably on the latter end of the gene pool in my family. So I was quite small,
Okay.
traditionally. Did a lot of training, but I had a very, very bad relationship with, probably the best way to say is like, my food and my body image. And to this day, I still probably would say, you know, there's certain things I look at and I say I've got a better relationship, but I still look at it and think, man, I wish I could be that size. Or like my partner might make a comment like, oh, your arms have got smaller. And it's very like, you know, what's the word? Emasculating. And I get in my way about it. And I think, what's the best way to look at that and think, how do I turn that into a positive? Or how do I get myself out of, you know, throwing a strop, essentially?
Well, basically, this is one of the reasons why I like Huge Gorilla so much, because the question is, what's your jungle? Okay.
Oh,
That's what James tells me all the time. Now, it's quite interesting. There's two ways to look at it. Now, I believe that probably the fact that you can play American football with the stature that you have means that you have a personality that is developed in a certain type of way. Now, we can look at our past and we can look at what we've given, okay, what God has given us, our genetics. We can tend to look at, I wish I had that. Or we can look at it from the perspective that, you know what, you are the person you are today because of that you had to overcome. So the fact of the matter is, if you were just naturally big, I'm telling you now that you probably wouldn't be as disciplined. You probably wouldn't be as conscious. You wouldn't you wouldn't work as hard as that you're actually working right today. So I believe that the universe or God or whatever you want to call it, but it gives you just enough of what you need, you know. So the fact of the matter is, when you're a bit smaller, that's okay. That's actually part of who you are. Now we have all these type of different images in our heads of what people should be. I mean, I always used to laugh at it. You can ask James. I was one of those guys I was born with like duck feet and funny knees. Now, whenever I ran, people would would literally burst out laughing. You hear what I'm saying? Because it was that bad. I even had friends of mine the other way, a little back when I just stopped my training, when I just stopped playing. One of the guys had a knee injury. And he was struggling to get running again. And as he was running on the field, everybody turned around and said, "Oh, look, Pat's back." Because me, a healthy Pat, looked like that when I was running, literally. You know what I mean? But I didn't care because I knew that where I was going. So God gave me a certain amount of things. I was even born with a VO2 max that is 30% less because I was born prematurely. 30% less than the average person. So when the first time I did that test, the guys were like, I'd never forget, we were in Northampton, James. I don't remember that. They did that lying test with all those monitors. And the first time they did their test, they're like, but how the hell are you a professional athlete? I'm like, because nobody told me I can't be. And this is where we need to understand that your part, your own uniqueness is actually your power. It's that actually makes you stronger. Because what happened to me, biologically, my body adapted, because in the same way that my lungs were underdeveloped, my heart was overdeveloped. It was a situation where my heart was stronger than most of the athletes. My heart rate, my resting pulse rate was about 45 a minute when I was still going. At the moment, I haven't trained in a long time. It's still like 50. And it's like a really strong heart, but that developed because I had shitty lungs. You know what I'm saying? So my upper body strength developed because I had crappy legs. And the fact of the matter is, our own uniqueness is actually our strength. And never forget that. Never forget that the fact that you are who you are because of that past, because of that thing. And you probably wouldn't be where you are today if it wasn't for that. So be confident. Be confident that you are here today just where you need to be. Yeah. Just believe that.
The big thing I
because if you start appreciating that, you can move forward to the rest.
That's a bit, to be honest, this subject is probably one of the biggest reasons I find huge. I think there's a lot of false images out there. You look on Instagram, you see these guys, they're massive, they're ripped, they're muscles everywhere, and a lot of it isn't real. And me and Pat have trained professional for 16 years of our life, training weights every single day, fitness every day, food told us exactly what to eat, had everything given on the plate, and we still don't look like that. And it's a false dream. People are given this dream to achieve this, and it's like you say, accept what you're in. It's like you feel bad about your body, but ask yourself, what does your body help you achieve? And then you'll actually really realize. It's like for me, I was always a fat kid at school, and then I hit puberty. I went slim, and now I'm big, strong, and my body's helped me do a lot of things. And yeah, I look at these guys on Instagram, and mate, I still have the same things. I want to be bigger, stronger, more muscular. I still train now, and I'm always aiming for that. But there comes a point, it's like, well, my body can only do so much. And like Pat said, that's it's like we talk a lot. It's about what is your jungle. Own your jungle, and don't want to be in someone else's jungle. Your jungle is your jungle, and you make it. You're the king of your jungle. Don't go looking into someone else's jungle and try and take their territory, because you know what? When you invade another animal's jungle, what happens? They just come, force you out, and it's like, no, you're not coming here. So embrace your jungle, own it, and be what you are.
I like that. I mean, it is very, humbling. Obviously, I remember the message I got from you when we had the call, and then obviously you told me all like your accolades or whatever, and I checked the receipts, bro. So I seen it and I thought, oh, flipping out. It was weird because I was sitting there like, why have they chosen to speak to me? Because I'm not not that I'm not the biggest or whatever. I know I'm in good shape, but in my head I was like, bro, this dude's like a professional rugby player. I mean, he's probably smashing different type of weight, like different. I was thinking the stats are through the roof. Like I played rugby for one season. I went to American football, and I thought because there's a position for everybody there. Not that there's not one in rugby, but I just felt more suited to it. So, it's quite humbling when, you said, Alfie, look, we want to have you guys on board. It definitely built me a lot more confidence in what I'm doing and making sure that I know what I'm doing is not necessarily right, but right for me. If you know what I mean? Like you said, what is my jungle? So for American football, it does give me a bit more confidence and knowing that, actually I'm quite good at what I'm doing.
Okay, I want you to go have a look at a video of a rugby player. He's called Cheslin Kolbe.
Cheslin
Kolbe. I'll send you. I'll send the Cheslin Kolbe. You'll see him. He is one of the smallest rugby players in the world, and he's won Player of the Year for how many times? He is just one of the most amazing rugby players there is. And they also told him all the time that he was too small to play rugby. But he is an amazing player. And it's because he just embraced who he was.
Yeah.
And you go have a look at some of these clips. You'll be inspired. I shit you not.
I'll have to have a look at that. I like that one.
So what is your huge, mate? Your huge is what your life is a journey, and your life journey, the pressure from your parents wanting to be more, being the smallest is major. And that's your huge, and your values you have now. You're in touch with yourself, and that's the thing. A lot of people forget that. They're looking across for what to be better, or I want to be like this person. They don't actually stop, write down on a piece of paper, what am I great at?
Yeah.
And it's the same in rugby, mate. I was always, and Pat would be exactly the same. I always didn't think I played well enough. I always worried if I was going to be selected for the next week. I was always worrying about the next thing, and then my career ended. And there's like, I didn't ever stop for a minute and enjoy the moment. All the victories we've had, the big games, I never actually stopped and enjoyed the moment. Yeah, I'd go out for some beers, but then the next day it'd be, boom, this is the next thing we've got to do. And that's the problem. A lot of people these days don't stop and just embrace the actual moment living in. I don't know what your thoughts are on that pattern.
Of course. I mean, the fact of the matter is you get two types of players, and it's quite interesting. I've seen this quite a bit now. You get the players that are just happy with what they have. Okay, so that means is they're happy, that's why they play well. I'll never forget, you get a guy like Frederico Mendes. I'll tell you the story. It's a beautiful story. He was one of the best hookers in the world back in the day. And he had this thing. He used to smoke. He used to drink. He used to eat what he wanted. He used to also love women. And anyway, again, before this one match, and I'll never forget this, I asked him, but why? How do you manage to perform with all this stuff that you're doing? And he turned around to me in his Argentinian accent and he said to me, Pat, when I eat fat, I'm happy. When I drink, I'm happy. When I smoke, I'm happy. And when I fuck woman, I'm happy. And when I'm happy, I play good rugby. And you know what? That was so true. It's something that we forget in sport. And then you get the other guys that they're constantly working, okay, to be better. And that is their happiness. And they constantly feel, inadequate. And that's what's actually pushing them to perform. Now, you need to decide which one you are. One is not right than the other. But the fact of the matter is one is a hell of a lot easier than the other. You just need to decide who you are. And that's the question that you can decide. Because the fact of the matter is you need to be happy in yourself to actually be performing on the field. People forget that between the ears is the most important. The most important muscle that you have is this brain of yours. And if that thing is happening, and if that thing is firing, and you're firing on all your freaking neurotransmitters, and you're flying, that's when performance just happens. It just happens. You know what I mean? I've had seasons, I've had times when I've had unbelievable pre-seasons and I'm in the best shape of my life, and then the season was absolutely crap. And then I had seasons where I just said, like, okay, I need a rest, and I did nothing for the pre-season. Well, and then I just had a fantastic season. It was just because it had actually nothing to do with my physical shape at that time. Well, not that I'm saying it's not important. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of the time, it was just the happiness factor. How was I myself? And that actually helped a lot with performance. And in the end, I was actually in good shape too, because I was happy. I wasn't grabbing the fat and the chocolates and the sugar and the alcohol and all the other stuff, because I was happy and in myself. And I was getting that amount of, happiness hormones, if you want, naturally from just being and just living.
That segues like really well into what I was thinking about, because in terms of being happy with what you're doing and that, another big thing in my life. So my parents are both immigrants to this country, and they came here, first they're being parents in a completely different country to a British kid who's learning all the British ways. However, there was a lot of pressures in terms of succeeding, and success was like, there's a big onus, I'm sure on, parents, well, not only in Africa, but in a lot of other countries, coming here and saying, look, success is like, this is what you got to do, this is what you can do. So it's a one-way communication. And I felt like, even now, I feel like I didn't do everything that they would probably expect for me performing at what level I'd be performing at. It was always like, well, you could do better. Well, you could have done this, and you could do this. And it's always, it was just always a higher standard. And a lot of my family, some of them are musicians. One plays football. He's now coaching normal soccer in Canvey Island, or in America now. So I'm always in that mindset of, how do I relieve that? Because obviously my parents are my family. Like you said, there's the whole oxytocin thing, like going to my family. However, they are still tough critics. At the end of the day, I just wondered, did you guys have any experiences of that? Like, saying, you had a game and they're like, well, you missed that, and you missed like 3 carries or so. You know what I mean? It was, I'm curious to see how, you would dissect that, or whether that's something that you experienced or James experienced.
James, you want to go first on this one?
I'll let you go first, because obviously I know you're.
Of course, buddy. Listen, that's part and parcel of it. 2 things there. You need to understand that there's always going to be that type of, critique. It's always that wanting to do better. And you'll see that when you have children too, one day, that you want the best for them. What I want to tell you is, I think that probably that type of pressure probably contributed to a part of your success and where you are today. However, it is utterly important that you need to understand that that was good maybe for a while, but you cannot hang on to that. Because if you hang on to that, you will never be good enough. You will never feel good enough. And then and unfortunately, because of that, you would probably sabotage yourself to a certain level subconsciously because you don't believe you're good enough. So I would say that you need to be careful. It's wonderful. There's a part of you that you understand the past molds us and it makes us who we are, but also we can choose to make our own futures. And this is why it's important that you understand that, yes, it was useful, but is that still useful to me today? And that's the question you need to ask yourself. Is that critique or is that thing that it is it useful for me today in the setting? If it is, then work with it. But I have the sneaky suspicion that it probably is not. And you've got this little, like they say, the proverbial devil on your shoulder.
Exactly.
Sometimes, you should sometimes just enjoy the moment, like James has said, like he said with the rugby. Just enjoy the moment, be in it now, be in the present and enjoy the present, work for the present, and just go for it. Yeah.
I think for me, my aspect on that is obviously I've moved away to a different country. I've moved away from the home of my parents, and I've obviously had a lot more life experiences during I've moved away as well. So my thoughts, my feelings, my expectations, my outview on life is completely different now. And I guess my parents are in where they live, and they still have those same expectations, and mine are different now. And that's where you have to realise, well, I'm a different person to them. They're still my parents, but my beliefs are my beliefs, and now you have your journey. Like I'm a father as well, and I have an expectation of how amazing I want my kids' life to be, and that, but there will be things that happen within their life on their journey that may divert them off that track or keep them on track. And that's the best thing a parent can do is prepare for those ups and downs. I don't think you can put pressure on. You just have to help prepare, and when they do fall off the track, be there to help them put them back on it. And when they are going full steam on the track, you're right behind them on board. So that's sort of my idea on it all.
You know what I've noticed when James answers questions, right? It's like built for TV.
Yeah.
It's like, when you're watching like the comments after a game, it's literally, I was just sitting there listening. I was like,
very serious, eh? Very serious.
He's done a few after game.
I don't look like it, but I'm a deep thinker. And
yeah.
like I say, mate, there's the big thing with the huge gorilla and going to that. There's a lot behind it. People just think it's something else, but people like you, people like Pat, we don't have perfect lives. People look at us and think we're rugby players and life's amazing, but when you come to the end of your career, you've got injuries, you've got aches and pains. We have problems in our personal lives. There's problems every day, but people think because they see perceive what they see on TV or on Instagram as something, it isn't the real life. And that's what that's why I've got someone like Pat on board who's been there, mate. He's a psychologist. He's suffered every single up and down possible in life. He hasn't had an easy childhood. He's real, and that's what we need. We need real people, and we need to bring life back to a bit of realism, because at the moment there's so much fakeness around and not honest values. The values from life are gone, and me and Pat have been part of a team, and the one thing I think people can rely on the most, and that goes back to Pat's tribe, exactly, is that team. You have to rely on the team. Trust. I had someone tell me the trust. Just because you like it, don't trust it. And that's an important. That was a phrase I was told the other day, and it's really stuck on me, because there's people I like and I trust, but they let you down. So don't make trust something because you like it. Trust is something because you have the facts. And it's the same with Instagram and things these days. You look at it, you like it, oh, you trust it. I can look like this, but it isn't the real thing. Go away and look at the facts. Yeah.
But listen, it was great. It was great speaking to you guys. And like James said, just remember, Alfie, ask yourself the question, what's your jungle?